Good afternoon. This next item is the standing update on implementation of SB 1440, so it's familiar territory. I think the concepts that Michelle and I are going to walk through are items we've covered before, but what I'm going to start with is just a status check in terms of where we stand in terms of degree development, and we have reached a point, and you should have a handout that has a blue and gold on it. It's a landscape legal printout. And this is, as you know, the tracking document that we've been using to keep track of which Senate Bill 1440 degrees have been approved. These are the Associate of Arts for Transfer and Associate of Science for Transfer degrees. And we've recently reached the 500 degree point. We've got 501 degrees approved system-wide, so it's a threshold there. Continuing to make progress.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
We were at 497 for a really long time, so we kept waiting for this next 3 degrees.
That's great.
And it's encouraging that we're seeing the degree development, across all our colleges. At this point, we have 37 of our colleges have 5 or more associate degrees for transfer in place. We have 10 colleges that have 10 or more degrees in place. Fullerton is currently leading the pack with 17 degrees in place. That's a pretty full complement. And Pasadena City College is in second place with 13 degrees in place. So these are, again, just some of the metrics that we've been trying to keep you apprised of as we've moved on through implementation. I think it's fair to say that there's a lot of work left ahead, and so it's good to celebrate the progress that we've made so far, but our focus in the implementation and oversight committee and our work in the Chancellor's office and our work with the Academic Senate is definitely focused on the need to continue the forward progress on this front. We've established a goal for the community colleges of having 80% of the transfer pathways covered with these new SB 1440 degrees by the end of 2013. And so what that means, and we've covered this in an earlier meeting, but I think it's worth stepping through again, is that by the end of 2013, colleges would have degrees in place for all their disciplines in which they transfer students. They'd have SB 1440 degrees in place for at least 80% of those disciplines. And then by the following year, by the end of 2014, it would be 100% coverage for those transfer pathways. And so that's a goal that's been expressed to the colleges in a letter from Chancellor Scott, and we are planning a follow-up to provide a little more clarity on how we will move as a system towards those goals, and that direction will be going out before long. It's in development right now. I also wanted to note that the tracking matrix that we've been using also keeps track of CSU's progress, and for CSU, the critical work that they need to do is to have all of their campuses honor all of these degrees, and it shows up at the very bottom of the matrix on the last page, and you'll see that CSU also is making progress. There are several of these. There are four of the disciplines in which CSU has achieved 100% compliance, where every one of their campuses that offers a bachelor's degree in a given field is honoring the 1440 degree and conferring the full benefits of that degree to students who are applying. So you see that in art history, political science, and sociology. The other disciplines, there's a lesser degree of implementation in CSU, and that honestly is one of the key points that we keep driving on in our implementation and oversight committee meetings. Keeping pressure on CSU to achieve a higher level of compliance, and I think at their administrative, at their chancellor's office level, I think there is a high degree of commitment to achieving that 100% compliance. For them, it's a matter of doing the work at the campus level to kind of bring their departments and their faculty along to identify where there are perhaps perceived misalignments with the degree, and figure out local strategies to make these 1440 degrees work for students applying in all the disciplines. And and it's for us, the challenge is getting all our colleges to adopt to develop and to develop the new degrees and have them approved. For CSU, their challenge is to get that full, that full acceptance in terms of honoring the degrees in all the disciplines. And so, I think that we are continuing to make significant progress. We know that as we step into this next legislative cycle, I'm sure we're going to have considerable attention focused on our system. The Legislative Analyst's Office has been, throughout this process, has been monitoring closely and asking questions, and I'd fully anticipate that they're going to weigh in on implementation as we move forward. And I think that my sense is we've made enough progress on this front that we continue to kind of control the dialogue. But I think what we need to do is to make sure that we don't stall out at this 500-degree point, because that's when I think we're going to start seeing folks from outside our system trying to direct us or trying to guide this. And I think we do a better job when we're in control of our own destiny on it. So as a board, I think it's going to be important that you continue to pay attention and provide your leadership and focus on this, so that as we move towards the 80% goal and the 100% goal, that the colleges understand that this is something that has strong Board of Governors support. So those are the items I wanted to cover, and I wanted to turn it over to Michelle Pilati and let her weigh in on implementation.
Yeah, good afternoon. I wanted to point out one thing because somebody asked me about it. You have biology and chemistry listed on your sheet. We do not have a finalized TMC yet in biology, so that's why you don't have any degrees there. And we do have a finalized TMC in chemistry, but we have some technicalities that we need to work out before colleges would actually be able to create degrees that fit in the 1440 structure. And I may have mentioned this before. There is a proposal to have an alternative general education pathway that would allow students in those highly sequenced majors to hold off on 2 general education courses until after transfer, so they can finish those sequences while they're at the community college, and then after they transfer and they're into those really hard upper division courses, they can have a bit of a break with those 2 general education courses. So we're still working out the technicalities of having that alternative general education pattern. Basically, it's been accepted and endorsed by the UC and by the community colleges, and is still working its way through the CSU system. And then there's also making sure that is acceptable within the 1440 framework. So we're still working on that, and that's why you have those sort of hanging out there. And it would be really neat if this was actually put into chronological order, because then I think you would see that we're doing really well. The ones where you have lots of shading are the ones that were developed early, and colleges have had ample time to consider them. I think that's important to recognize. We should have Spanish and philosophy finalized pretty soon, so those are in progress. The faculty have completed their work and are coming together to do the final work on the TMC, so we're hoping to have those finalized and available for colleges very soon. We did just convene groups with about 5 or 6 of our CTE disciplines, and then I believe we talked here a little bit about the issues around early childhood education, possibly not working for all child development programs. So we brought a group together to work on or to figure out if it made sense to do child and adolescent development as an alternative to early childhood education. And also we brought in folks to talk about exercise science in contrast to kinesiology. I believe you all asked about those before. So things are very much in progress. We're also hoping to post model curriculum for engineering soon. Because it's engineering, it's not going to fit within that 60-unit structure, but the idea was, could we have a common pathway for engineering, in this instance, 2 different types of engineering, and then down the road look at allowing those degrees to have the same benefits as far as acceptance, admissions to the CSU and the UC now that we have with the 1440 degrees. You're probably going to be hearing a lot about where we are with degree development because there's a report coming out on the matter quite soon. And as this really is sort of conference season for the community colleges, Barry had prepared some slides on the goals that have been set that I just wanted to show you sort of what messaging is starting to go out to colleges so that they can work on taking that next step and going beyond those 2 degrees. Could you uncover that? And it's just a few. I'll power through it as quickly as I can. Or not. Okay. You're not communicating. Ah, there we go. So this is just sort of where we are numerically, just to show you. And as we've talked about before, CID describes the courses in the degrees, and CSU expects that we are using CID to ensure the rigor and content and quality of the courses that are in the degrees. So where we're at with participation in CID, we have 90 community colleges that have submitted at least 1 course that has been granted a CID number. We have a good number of approved courses, and we're sort of working through all this. In looking at where we're at, we have what Barry's referring to as active degrees, associate degree proposals when we know someone's developing something. Self-certified is in the early stages of the degree approval process. Colleges were allowed to say, yeah, my courses look like those CID courses, and to simplify the degree approval process by doing that. Where no CID exists, the colleges have to provide articulation. And now we're in a phase where we need colleges to submit their courses to CID, and so we're sort of having to put goals in place for CID along with the degree goals. So we talked about 100% goals. So we have the numerator, it's the number of the degrees that a college actually has, and then the denominator is the number of TMCs that align with the college's existing AA or AS degrees, and Barry's office is working on figuring out what those numbers are with colleges, showing what data the Chancellor's office has and comparing it with the college. So I would envision in the future you're going to have what that goal is for each college, another column on your sheet. So here's what the messaging that has started to go out there. The goal is 100% by June 2014, 80% by June 2013. Correct me if I get this off. This is Barry's slide, not mine. We also have this need. So we really had sort of a cart horse issue because colleges had to get their degrees in place, but they didn't have time to submit their courses to CID, so they were allowed to self-certify. Now they need to clean up and actually submit their courses to CID so that we are living up to our side of the deal with CSU. So we now have a deadline for when colleges have to replace their self-certified CID, the self-certified CID that they did by actually submitting their course to CID. And the deadline for that has been pushed to June of 2013. The idea being here, if a college said, my course looks like that course, it should not be that hard to actually submit the course that they've said looks like the course. In the instance where somebody used articulation and there was a CID descriptor, they weren't pretending that they had something that matched the CID descriptor. They were taking an alternative pathway. So they're being given a longer time period to take care of those fixes, though we'd really like to see it happen before June 2014 because, again, we're not living up to our side of the deal with CSU. And then the intent here is that if things are not in place by the end, non-conforming degrees would be pulled. That's sort of the message that is being put out there. I don't pull degrees. That's something that Chancellor's office can do, but that's the message that's out there. So that the take home is here that the message is being given to the colleges very clearly that they need to participate. I have said repeatedly, having goals that have been set for us and defined for us by the Board of Governors and the Chancellor's office is a lot better than having having goals that are defined for us by the legislature and sort of out of the hands of academics and so forth. And I've personally been stressing that because we know it's hard when you have legislation telling you to do something. It's a lot easier if you keep it in-house and can control it yourself. So that's where we're at this point in time.
And just in conclusion, I'd underscore what I think is evident from the presentation is just how much this has been an active participation between our office and the Academic Senate. CSU has a similar kind of dynamic where they're, I don't know that their relationship is quite as strong as ours, but I tell you that the Academic Senate and the CSU is doing a tremendous job as well. And it's the faculty administration cooperation on this one that is allowing this initiative to move forward. So it's really been a joy to work with Michelle on this.
Okay, thank you. Member McDougall.
I don't want my comments to sound negative. I realize how tremendously complex this area is, and I recognize how hard people are working and how good the people are who are working on this. At the same time, there is perhaps nothing that will impact more favorably upon the ability of this system to achieve in the area of transfer than this project. Students, for the most part, can be confused, they can hit barriers, and they go other ways because the pathway is not clear. And I'm very pleased at the progress. I'm particularly pleased to hear of the goal by 2015 of 80% completion. But when you look at this and you look at the programs, and Michelle did refer to them, I spoke with her earlier about it, those that have a high economic return to the state of California. For example, engineering, which is not on the list, but there's going to be a way of working that in. We're talking about engineering here. Primary area of employment, primary programs in the California community colleges. It's not on the list right now, but it will be. Biology, 0. Chemistry, 0. Computer science, 0 in terms of the number of programs. And again, I'm not trying to be critical, but we have a way to go. And this is just too important to the system. Whatever we can do, whatever this board might do to support it to a greater degree, to assist the chancellor and others, we need to do. This has tremendous effect on our students and on the system's capacity to achieve its goals and transfer.
I think your point is well taken. I, for one, I am really pleased at the progress that has made. I mean, it just seems like one or two meetings ago, we were talking about 10 degrees, and to see that we're at 500, I think is a testament to your work, Michelle, and you, Eric. I mean, I think it's incredible. But I do agree with Member McDougall, and perhaps Chancellor or Michelle, you can shed some light on these particular things. I think Member McDougall is right, and I trust they're coming.
So computer science is one of our last 2 that was approved, so that's part of the reason why it's not there. They're also having struggles with the unit cap. And so in some instances, there are colleges that are looking at some of their courses, some of their math courses, for example, that have inched up in units and possibly modifying the unit so that they can create it. And computer science is one that was having a challenge with that. Business is another one that was having a challenge with that. And I think there's colleges sort of going back and looking at their curriculum. Why do we have these units here? Is it really justified? So there's some of that going on. And again, I shared already that on the side, we're planning on locking biology and chemistry in rooms so they can get their work done. Both disciplines offer service courses for other disciplines. You think of math as doing service courses for other disciplines, but biology has a whole slew. And then chemistry, you don't think about that either. They have courses that serve other disciplines, so we have other work for them to do. And again, chemistry is on hold till we finalize that alternative general education pathway, which we're hoping that all the technical maneuverings that have to happen will be done by the end of January. So hopefully we can get those off, get at least chemistry off of that sort of holding pattern that it's in right now.
Thank you. Other comments, Member Belinsky?
I also want to point out that we're looking at the community college side of this, and we're looking at the CSU side solely by numbers, but I'd like to just give one example about the CSU side that they really need to step up too, and I don't know what leverage there is other than that there was an LAO report in May that addressed some of the problems at the CSU level. But I'll just give one because it's in my area, the Bay Area, as an example. Business administration. And while it says on the back that 18 of the CSUs have a similar, in the Bay Area, there's one school that has no similar to business administration, and the three I'm thinking of are San Francisco, CSU East Bay, and San Jose, and I forget which it is. But one of those three schools has no similar to business administration. One has corporate management, which is even cited in this report from the LAO. Corporate management is the only one, if you take business administration, you can get into. And another school has just general business instead of some of the higher level types of programs that exist there. So I mean, I think that not to discount our need to keep moving ahead and to do these, but we also have to put on our radar what is happening at the CSU system and what they're matching it with, and their need really to take this even more seriously than what they are, from my point of view, in order to make it really advantageous for students to do this. Because when you talk to a student to say, I want you to do this, I want to write your ed plan, then you're also putting down like where they're transferring to and what they're going to transfer into. And that the student looks at you and says, well, I'm not going into corporate management. I have no interest in corporate management. And that's, so I'd like to just, put that on our radar in order to be aware of that. And if people haven't looked, Michelle's the one that brought this to my attention, to the May report the LAO did. It's well worth reading on a progress report on Senate Bill 1440.
Very good. Member Baum.
I want to agree with Member Belansky too. Just to, as we echoed earlier, the pathway is so important and we need to continue our advocacy efforts in working with the CSUs, and you're going to meet with the new chancellor of the CSU system as well. The thing that alarms me the most, though, too, is after all this effort, the number of districts that are still at 2 or 3 transfer curriculum adopted. It's that we only have 35 that are 5 and above is of great concern to me. That and what are the roadblocks that are happening at these local districts where there's only 2 or 3? What's stopping them from moving forward on these?
There's a lot of different reasons. We have some that just don't think this is going to work, and so they're holding off and sort of waiting to see what happens. If you look at sort of who's not playing, it tends to be very small colleges and small colleges and in districts where all the colleges are really small, or large districts that are sort of taking we're going to wait and see and sort of being holdouts, if you will. You also have a lot of hesitancy because there are lots of issues with San Diego State, so you've got a lot of San Diego colleges, so they've been sort of waiting it out. You have instances like Member Belansky reported out where there's little finagling going on, and so that pathway isn't really the pathway that the student would want. So you have those issues that are making some colleges hesitant about doing these degrees.
Yeah,
and
it's a
they're
concern
kind
about
of
only a third of the districts have really
Mhm.
seemed to have embraced this and
Yeah.
moved forward on it, and 2 out of 3 are fewer than 5.
And I think there may have been a certain dynamic around the election too, in terms of people waiting for the other shoe to drop, and if potentially, anticipating environments in which they might look at eliminating programs or disciplines. With the amount of stability that we now have, I think that the districts that were in that mode, it'll be easier for them to move forward. But I think
We're going to use our stick.
in terms of communicating, I think that's the other more important piece that we're proceeding with, is to communicate clearly again this goal. And the piece that wasn't shared when Chancellor Scott laid this goal out earlier, one is the specificity around this process, but then importantly the stick at the end, which is
Yeah.
at the end of this time frame, if you don't have your programs converted, if you haven't had the new degrees approved, we're going to drop your old degree. That's the ultimate
where
hammer.
At some point, we've used the bully pulpit in many ways, but now seeing that we actually have a stick to apply some pressure, I as a board member, I'm hoping we use it.
The CSU saying they were only taking spring admits that had these degrees, I think that got a lot of colleges to start moving. Whether or not those degrees are on the books yet is a different story. I have to share that when this was shared at our plenary, our faculty were like, well, what's CSU doing? What goals has CSU set for themselves? So that's a question that I have on my to-do list to ask of the CSU.
Lastly, one question about the table. You're saying that there's no CSU major in biology or chemistry,
They're not finalized, so
No,
they
no,
just
but-
haven't been done.
but it says total CSUs with similar majors or majors.
They're only showing the for areas in which a transfer model curriculum has been developed.
I see.
And so because there isn't the TMC yet, it's 0 for now. But yeah, clearly that's not the case. They do have programs.
Until we have that pathway worked out for chemistry, it doesn't make sense to have the conversation with CSU. Could you determine, could you find this TMC similar? Because they now have to know the parameters around that TMC, and part of that would be they're going to complete this, but they're going to still have 2 GE courses that they have to do after transfer.
Other comments or questions from board members? Thank you both very much.
Thank you.